Hi, everybody, and welcome. This is June 28th, 2023. My apologies for not getting out the link to officially enrolled class members with more lead time. I should have sent that out last night. I sent it out this morning, literally right before class. So again, my apologies. Thank you for your understanding. Thank you for your forgiveness. I have a lot on my plate right now, literally. So sometimes I forget these important details. So welcome. This is actually level 1, level 2 continued from last week because there's so much that I didn't get a chance to talk and share about. I'm getting my little magic pad ready in terms of this basic shape as a structure of the cosmos. And rather than glossing over it because it is such foundation stuff that, and then kind of just like move on, like 1 plus 1 equals 2, plus 2 plus 2 equals 4, let's get moving on this class. Instead of being like that, I'm like, no, let's go time and structure things because we're in charge. It's not like meeting a bus station. Hold on a second. I knew I was going to do that. Jiggly wires. Hold on a second. Just making sure my mic is back on. Good. Sorry about that. I knew that my mic would get jiggled too because of jiggly wires. So this is what it's like. I'm trying to do a lot of things. Trying to bake a cake at 186,000 miles per hour. Good. Welcome. This is continuation of level 2 material. Sorry, lesson 1, wow. Level 1, lesson 2 material that I started last week that is all about this foundation concept, which is the shape. The shape is the shape of your chakras, but it's not just the shape of your chakras. It is also the shape. So your chakras are subtle energy bodies that are not made of optical light, but they are made out of pure light that is intelligence, data, awareness, potentials. It is a vibrating field of potential around your body. And that is not necessarily something that is perceptible with the physical eyes, but it is perceptible with the non-physical eye, the inner eye, or your higher senses. It's the subtle body. And we're talking about a time field around you. You have a standing wave of time probabilities and possibilities around you. And that is what comprises your chakras. That's what that little picture is right there. And I'll, of course, share many more diagrams in class today. But this is also the shape of various physical phenomena, things that are observed in the physical world and that are recognized and described by human Earth surface science at this time, objective materialist science. And that includes Earth's magnetic shield that is called the magnetosphere, and the sun's magnetic field that is called the heliosphere. And the heliosphere comprises what you would consider to be the epidermis of the sun. So the epidermis are the limitation boundaries of the sun. It's not actually the corona or the circular, spherical rather, area that you see of brightness around the sun. This is why I structured my water before class today. I'm like, I'm already thirsty. I already need this. Okay, getting going. Let's drink some water. The epidermis, or the boundary of the living creature known as the sun, would really be considered the heliosphere, which is an enormous energy boundary within which resides the entire solar system. And the heliosphere exists as also a thought umbrella, or a force field within which the thoughts and probability structures and possibility structures exist that include the possibility for life on this planet, which directly relates to our life experiences here. So you are an art project on a living art project that is this planet as an emanation from the sun star, but humans mostly think of that in terms of like cosmic spewage, like a sun like spews stuff away, it goes kablooey out in all directions, and then that magically coalesces as planets. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about something on a much, much more focused and subtle level, where literally the cognitive emanations of the sun star as a thinking structure emanates not only the physicality matter that we experience as our physical bodies and atoms and the material world, but literally the different reality structures that represent the different things that can happen in time. I'm going to mute you guys not because I don't love you, just because it'll help the sake of the recording. There you go. Thank you so much, to be a little bit better for when people catch the archive. And also, I don't say it enough. Thank you to everyone who is here in person, despite my late Zoom notification. Thank you to everyone who catches the archive. I profoundly appreciate everyone who attenuates to these ideas, eats these lasagna morsels, and internalizes these voluntarily or in consent as part of your life journey structure, because that is absolutely, like, that's my job joy of being here. Thank you for being open to and receiving these thoughts that I send out. So the structure of reality that we live within is literally a thought structure. You could think of it as a narrative structure or a story or a dream of the sun. Thinking about what can happen, thinking about reality structures that can happen, including, so like the sun in its greatness, thinking like, what would happen if I made a planet? And what would happen if I made these types of life forms? What would happen if I made these types of life forms? And how about this? And how about this? And how about this? That's literally what this planet place is. And that's literally what you as a miniature embodiment structure is or are. You are a thought emanation of the sun. And everything that happens in your life is similarly a thought emanation or a thought structure of the sun. And those thought emanations are pure light, some of which arrives here after 8 minutes journeying through the vacuum of space at 186,000 miles per hour as optical light. And a lot of it arrives here instantaneously as pure light of awareness, subtle light of your subtle bodies, which also represents the possibilities and probabilities of your life and the things that can happen in reality. One moment, I'm just re-upping my crystal here. Boom. That fast. Done. So I wanted to not gloss over this very important structure, because it is also the structure, so it's a structure of time. That's challenging for a lot of humans right now, because time is something that is non-tangible, non-visible, and it can be challenging. How do you even talk about this? How do you even talk about or know about something that is beyond the five senses? But it is something that you experience in reality. It is something that you experience in your day-to-day life, but it is not something that you have perspective on. So you are submerged within and swimming through this waveform tapestry of possibilities and probabilities. However, you don't necessarily have the perspective, and the perspective would be like, here you are on the surface of time, as if time is a flat leaf, and you're like a little ant walking on the surface of time. And then what would happen if you could jump off of that leaf and be quote unquote up above, looking at the entirety of time? First of all, that is gaining another dimension. So last week I emphasized building the dimensions. That's going from a two-dimensional structure and perspective to a three-dimensional structure and perspective, because now you not only can move around on the flat plane and see what is there, you now can come up above the flat plane and have the perspective of seeing the entirety of the flat plane all at once. And that's called three-dimensionality. And that also means that it's like becoming a butterfly or an ant with wings, where you can jump off of the leaf and you can fly to this side of the leaf without having to touch the interim over here, or you can fly to a completely different leaf. So this leaf is time, a series of events. And if you are a butterfly, the adult winged form, see the wings right there, then you can fly up, and you don't have to go like breakfast, lunch, dinner. You can fly up and you can fly directly to dinner. Or you can fly to dinner on a completely different leaf, which would be considered a parallel reality structure, a different dimension, a different story state than the one that is the linear story state that you've been experiencing. So when I define the word universe, uni means one, and verse literally means like the story of. Get it? Like a verse of a song. It's one story state of the totality of what time is. But when you are an adult, like a lasagna, an adult galactic citizen, you are able to jump off of the reality structure of what you are embedded upon and fly to a completely different reality structure. And also you can see and you can navigate and you can go there intentionally, be like, I don't like aspects of this reality structure, or it's not ideal for whatever reason. I choose to go and align with this different reality structure. So this is, I know, highly abstract stuff. I'm going to be super, super duper abstract today, because that's actually where I am most comfortable flying around. So I want to talk about the genesis of this shape. How is it made? Does it start out like this? Does it start out like this? Does it start out like this? How does it start out? Because last week I drew for you the dimensions and the building of the dimensions. So let me go now to this shape, but first I'm going to show you this picture that I laboriously squinted and scrolled before I started the recording so that I could share it with you. So this is, and let me just collapse the thumbprint so it's just to me. This is a nice little sketch that I did a long time ago. And what you see over here first, oh good, I can annotate. What you see over here first is, and let me just move things aside. You have no idea what my screen looks like. Sometimes there's stuff in the way and I can't get to the stuff that I want to draw. This sphere over here. So I'm always talking to you about, these flat reality planes. I'm always drawing things like a plane, but I'm saying it's not really a plane. Think of it as a sphere. Okay, I finally drew it as a sphere. It's this. This is the spherical nature of space-time consciousness. And what you see here are these arrows that come from these different directions or vectors. Here's one, here's one, here's one. And they literally come from these different directions. And what they do is create this structure over here, a dimpling inward of that spherical energy form, creating the 4 vortex shape. That is the primacy of your comprehension here, because I'll also draw over here, I've got that flat cross section of time that I draw as a graph so that you can begin to comprehend what is happening in time. And then I draw this central core timeline over here as a straight line. This is directly from the question in comments, the blah, blah, blah. The question in the comment section of YouTube from last week. Thank you to the lovely person, I think it was Salo, who wanted to know about, is that central core timeline, is it a straight line? Is it a spiral path? Because I have described to you how all of these other timelines, although I draw them in simplification form for shorthand in the diagram as if they are toothpicks or lollipop sticks, they are actually time spirals, because this is a volumetric vortex. So those, every single one of the timelines that is in this time vortex that ends on the membrane of death, which is this boundary right over here, they're all actually spirals. So all of these features that are here around the edge are actually spiral features, except for this one, oops, that one that I just drew and then erased and then redrew. This one central core timeline is the only one that travels in a straight line. So there are 2 different forms of energy that you see in this twin vortex shape, twin toroid shape, double toroid shape. You have the energy that goes around and around and around and around in a circle, like this, around and around and around and around in a circle. But then you also have the energy that is going in a straight line that bounces back and forth and oscillates back and forth. And I want to do an exact drawing for you about exactly how those things are going. So that's going to be on the whiteboard next, but just press pause on that expectation for a moment, because what I want you to do is I want you to understand that this is another version of this, all right? And this, I do this simplified 4 vortex drawing all the time, is also another version of this. So those are 2 different ways of drawing a face, but they both represent a face. And then this is how we turn the 4 vortex shape, the double torus, into the flying rainbow lasagna. So here I have the double torus shape. And you can see it is situated, I would say, like laying down on its side, not standing up. So if I go back to my face, it's going to be a lot of drawing and a lot of gesturing today. I usually show it to you like this, standing up, like it's got feet on the bottom, 2 arms sticking out to the side, and 1 head sticking up to the top. But in that drawing, I'm showing it to you like this. Got it? All right, so now, quote unquote, it's laying down, or you can imagine it as all of these like 4 tires or 4 wheels that are all hitting the road, hitting the road of life. I don't know what I would call it. Go back to my face. Someone's in the chat. Oh. Beautiful question. I will get to your beautiful question. Hold on. Let me just keep going with this because I'm on a roll. I'm on a roll. I want to say with lettuce and ketchup and tomato. I'm on a roll. I need to go back to here. Then I will get to your question. Sometimes I'm silly, especially when I'm overtired and overtaxed. So to complete this thought structure, I just lost my annotation. Annotation, come on. God. If I'm not fast enough, the annotation flies away and I have to go back. Try it again. Okay, this time, guys, I'm going to catch that annotation. Annotation. Good. This is how we create the flying rainbow lasagna out of this 4-vortex shape that is quote-unquote laying down or laying on its side. What you have to do first is bifurcate it. Cut it on the section like this, the same way that you would cut a grapefruit, all right? You're cutting it through the midline. You guys know what a grapefruit is. And then I want you to envision that we're taking that singularity. This is the singularity here at that central convergence point, which is also this, which is also this. It's the place where all of those vectors meet in the middle. And we're going to take that singularity and we're going to make it half of the time, it's going to be in this position up here. Boop, singularity up here. And then half of the time, it's going to be down here in this position down here. That is the magic of the lasagna. And we don't just do that, we do one other thing. One of these is going to turn a half step. It's going to turn or rotate a half step. Because what you have here is, let me get a lasagna color. Here's one of the upward flanges of the lasagna, but then you have to have the next one down here like this. And right now you don't have that. So what you need to do is you need to turn this. So there's, in proper language, talking about waveforms, there's the peak and there's the trough. Here's the peak and here's the trough. All right, the trough is the one that is like shaped like a smile, and the peak is the one that is shaped like a rainbow. All right, this trough actually has to move one step to the right. Everybody grab your partners and rotate one step to the right. So that is what we do. This part stays put, this part rotates half a step to the right, and that is how, now I'll just erase a little bit just to clear up this drawing. This peak, I'll put dot, 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 translates to this peak. And then this trough, try it in a different color or in a different spot. This trough over here translates dot, dot, dot to this structure over here. So I hope you got that, because this is pretty accurate. Here's the peak over here, here's the trough over here, here's the peak over here. So that is the edge of the lasagna. Drinking a little bit of water here before I go on. Many people ask me, Aurora, why lasagna? Are you obsessed with Italian food? I actually didn't even know about Italian food. I didn't even know about food. I didn't know about recipes. This is long before I watched Food Network. When I first came here as Aurora, I did not know about things at all. But I saw this shape and embodied it. And then in naming it, I found analogs that were the closest thing in the thesaurus of the English language that I had in my memory banks. The edge of this shape is curly like a lasagna noodle. You guys know what lasagna noodles are shaped like, right? They are kind of rectangular, and they have a curly edge. Here's a curly edge, curly edge, curly edge. Here's another curly edge. Here's another curly edge, and here's another curly edge. And then, of course, you put them in a pan, and you have to soften them up and everything. That's what the closest thing that I had a word for to be able to talk about this. So this curly edge of the flying rainbow lasagna is similar to the shape of the actual pasta form. And that is why I named it that. It actually doesn't have anything to do with food, but then the food analogies flow from that. So that's just good lasagna lore. So in this drawing that I've done for you here, the next thing I'm going to show you the what things map to. This point over here, the upward, according to, there's no up and there's no down in hyperspace, but we're just calling it up for like your human perception, maps to this spot right here. Oh, my pen doesn't work. Right over here. And then this one over here maps to the one that is down there at the bottom. My pen still doesn't work. Right down here. Terrible drawing, but you get the idea. So what we're doing is creating another dimension. The another dimension in the lasagna shape, that is the upgrade from this shape over here. The another dimension is where I'm scribbling. It's what you would call inside of the sculpture, even though technically there is not an inside there. And now language is going to be very, very difficult to be able to talk about this. So now let me go back to my face. And let me also wiggle my fingers. Hold on. And then I'm going to get to that wonderful question and comment. So this is a three-dimensional sculptural representation of something that is actually fourth dimensional, time-based. It moves. And the way that this moves is it jumps up and down. This part jumps up and down. And this part also rotates around and around. And I have many animations that I'll share throughout class. Where I'm placing my pen, oh, good, got another student coming in. Where I'm placing my pen and wiggling my pen, that's the another dimension. That is the area, instead of saying space. That's the area that exists, that is a new area of freedom compared to this. There is no place for me to wiggle my pen in this structure. This is like the grapefruit before it has been sectioned apart. So in math talk, every time you add an additional dimension, you add an additional degree of freedom. If you are going from a two-dimensional flat plane to a third-dimensional structure and perspective, you add an additional degree of freedom. Here's how you can conceive of that. If you're a little car or an ant driving around here on a road, on a flat plane in a parking lot, you're like, okay, I can go this far and I can go this fast, and these are the limited pathways that I can take. But if you have either a rocket ship to fly or wings to fly, then you have much more freedom to be able to go places. If you were in a race with a car that was stuck to the surface of the flat plane, you would win. You'd be like, see you suckers, I'm going to jump off over here and land over here. I'm going to win this race. And that is because having an additional dimension means that you have an additional degree of freedom. So last week I taught you about the zeroth dimension, the totality space of everything, moving into the first dimension, a line, moving into the second dimension, a plane, moving into the third dimension, a box, and then a box as a series of boxes, a series of time moments that you jump from moment to moment to moment in terms of moving down a timeline. And then that one timeline lines up with many other timelines, becomes a time plane. But that timeline is the fourth dimension and the time plane is the fifth dimension. But from there you have to go into your imagination realm and not be too literal, because the plane of time is actually a waveform of potentials. And I'm using these visual ways of being able to teach you, but don't get stuck in the form. Don't get so in love, like I'm so in love with the form. Form never leave me. Don't get so stuck in the form that you can't recognize that the diagrams are representations of truth, but not truth themselves. So the flat plane of time that is made up of many multiple timelines is basically multidimensionality and the many possibility structures of reality. So if this timeline that's made of individual boxes and individual bodies, that's a big emphasis that I have to say, because it brings it right home to you in your guts, makes you really feel the truthfulness of and profundity of what this is. You don't have one body. You don't have one body. You have a multiplicity of bodies. You have a body of 233. That's what time it is now. You have a body of 234. You have a body of 235. Think about how many, and that's, I'm just using minutes. You actually have a body of every time moment separated at the Planck length. The Planck length is the smallest measurable amount that you can subdivide time into and still call it time. Hello, Lucy. Hugs to you. Great to see you. Thank you for tuning in to us from your desk. The Planck length is something like 10 to the negative 32nd exponent. It is so small, it is smaller than a proton. A proton is at the center of an atomic nucleus. It's considered very, very, very small. So the Planck length is tiny. So you have many, many, many Planck lengths to even come up with 1 nanosecond. And then a nanosecond into a second, and then a second into a minute. So I'm just generalizing here. I'm in my body of 234. See, I just switched. But you have many, many, many slices. You don't have one body that's moving through time. You have a whole, let's draw it. So much easier, I can tell when I just need to connect with your minds. And let's just draw it like a picture. Okay. Let's say foreground into perspective. So this red body that you're in right over here, famous stick figure, that is you now. And I'm even going to write that now. And now can be whatever time is on the clock. 2:35. Oh, I just jumped into my body of 2:35, okay? But all of my bodies are going to go, quote unquote, backwards down this time tunnel in this direction into the past. So let's just erase that. Let's find a different color. Here's my body from 2:34. Slightly smaller because I want it to show receding into the distance. And I will also use cool colors because I'm an artist. Get cool colors recede. Here's my body from this morning. Okay? Let's say that's 9 a.m. just for ease of writing things out because my pen is so hard to work with. Hug me. My pen is hard to write with, guys. This doesn't even look like a 9. I'm crying. It's so hard. Okay. And then let's go all the way back to, this is my body from, I'm trying to draw it super duper small, last year. Make that 2022. I can't draw. It's so hard. Oh, I need hugs. All right, cool. And then we're just going to go over here, dot, 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 like kind of like back to the beginning. This is like a huge simplification, but each one of these is a separate discrete body. And then let's choose a consciousness color. Purple is the consciousness color. This is me. This is my consciousness jumping into each of these bodies. That was me in my body of 2022. And then I jumped, and 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 I jumped. And eventually I jumped into my body of 9 a.m. this morning. And I woke up before 9 a.m. I want you to know that. But pretend, this is me at 9 a.m. Like, I'm making coffee, I'm in my pajamas, I'm doing my music, yawning, stretching. And then I jumped forward into my green body, which is my body of 5 minutes ago. And then I jumped into my body of right now. So technically, the real me in this diagram is this purple energy pathway. I am the purple thing that is jumping into all of these different bodies. These bodies also can be identified as me. The definition of what you are changes. The composition of what you are changes. So this body here is a little bit different than this body over here, and this body over here, and this body over here. But I'm me. I'm still me. Even though my body is a little bit different in all of those forms or versions, I'm still me. Like over here, like I just drank some water. I have particular, molecules of water, and I ate some scrambled eggs. And over here, this is me having, coffee in my body. And then me in 2022, this is when I ate whatever, like cilantro chicken. That I had different stuff in my body of 2022 than I had in my body of 2023, but I'm still me. So this is back down to very profound questions, very profound concepts of how do you define self? Because self is the recipe of you. I'm like, I'm me, I'm made of stuff. I'm me, I'm made of stuff. But I'm also more than just me made of stuff. I'm me, the impulse that inhabits and animates stuff. Because my stuff from 2022 is actually not here right now. I'm in my stuff from 2023. And then soon I'll be in my stuff for next year, 2024, which will be a slightly different recipe of stuff, but I will still be me. Profound, deep significance as it relates to your transformation, metamorphose, change of state into what you will become from a flat surface dweller of time, like a little ant, to the adult winged form, your galactic self, who you are when you are in a higher dimensional state. Because you're like, I'm already third dimensional. What am I going to be? Fourth dimensional? Yes. And fifth dimensional? Yes. And sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, infinity, infinity, infinity. But also, when I talk about the fifth dimension, there's that great band that sang The Age of Aquarius, and we can sing it if we're feeling silly. But also, there's a lot of things that people teach about now that they call 5D, which I have qualms. Let me gesture. I have qualms with the languaging of how that phrase is used. Someone eventually described to me, they say, they're talking about fifth density, not fifth dimension. I'm like, oh, thank God. Oh, because I was getting so agitated thinking that they were talking about the fifth dimension when they're actually talking about the fifth density. So they're talking about a different level of reality, but not the fifth dimension, because the fifth dimension is technically a self state. I talked about this last week, and I will re-emphasize that you already inhabit. You already inhabit the fifth dimension, which is a waveform of pure potential. So in the bakery of reality, you have one long skinny French bread that's like my finger here, and that's your life. From birth over here to death over here at my fingernail. You have one line. This is analogous to the universe, one narrative story structure of who you are and what can happen in your life. But you are also experiencing the waveform potentials of all of these other things that can happen, and you're contributing to them, but you're just not yet baking them into reality through the observership that I jokingly call the ovens in front of your eyes. So in the world, the French bread of reality is created or baked in the fifth dimensional bakery of reality. And 5D, the fifth dimension, as I talk about it, is actually the place in the bakery where they've got like giant mixing stuff, giant bags of flour, the potentials for bread. And you can think of yourself during your day as, I'm in a waveform, I'm in a sea of potentials. I'm in a waveform sea of potentials. That's kind of like dough. I'm swimming around in dough, in uncooked bread. But every place you look, imagine lasers are coming out of your eyes. I'm cooking the bread into stuff. And through observership, I am solidifying it and turning it into the actual experienced levels of material reality that we can touch with our five senses and be like, yup, that's stuff. And that includes your body. That includes the body that you're jumping into as you jump through time. That is material stuff that you are literally manifesting into being through your observership, not just once, but every single minute. So this relates to your cosmology, because humans have this cosmology. They say the Big Bang is what started. If I said to everyone, this is me going around town with my clipboard and my pen. I'd like to take a survey, everyone. How did the world come into being? And in this time, place, culture, most people who have some education would say, oh, the Big Bang happened. I say, has a Big Bang happened? Big Bang, check mark. They'd say, oh, a long, 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 long time ago, a bunch of super dense hot stuff and gases and whatnot decided to expand and explode into the cosmos and created all of these atoms and quarks and stuff. And then eventually became stars, and then eventually became planets, and then life arose through biological evolution. And that would be the cosmology of this culture. It's not truthfulness. It is the truthfulness through the lens of this culture. Because if I went to a different time, place, or if I went to different people, not around here in my town, but at different people, I would say, I'm taking a survey. How did life arise, or where does the world come from? And they'd say, oh, well, it was birthed out of a world egg that came out of a higher dimensional bird. And then the world egg hatched and all of these things came out. Or they would say, the world exists on the back of a large turtle. And the turtle is held up by 4 pillars that stand upon 4 elephants. And that, that these are different cosmologies. And one is not true and the other is not false. These are all truthful cosmologies according to the belief system of the observer. So what's actually happening, now I'll tell you what's actually happening, is in each moment, each one of you as embodied observer is miniature or smaller scale God, and you are having a relationship with yourself as God, the generative force field. The Big Bang, or that generative effect, or when the bird gave birth to the big world egg that cracked open and everyone came out of it, that didn't happen a long time ago. That actually happened this morning. And it also happened at 2:35, and it's also happening now at 2:44. It happens in every moment that you are experiencing. The world is birthed in every moment that you are experiencing it. And if you are male or if you're a female, it doesn't matter. You're giving birth to the world through your observership, through your perception. And the lens of your perception and how you define and expect reality is very much based in your cultural and religious paradigms, based in your languaging, because humans, your language affects your mind structure and how you look at the world and how you expect things to be and how you expect things to be shaped, because it has to do with grammar, syntax. First this, then this, then this, and then first I say this, then I say this, then I say this. And some languages are different than the English language. They are non-linear in their forms of communication. So like you talk about the Bible says first God created this, then God created this, then came this, then came this, then came this, and then all the creatures of the world, and then Adam and Eve, right? That's linear. And in the English language, it's like in a sentence, you're going to grammar and syntax. First I say this, then I say this, then I say this, then I say this, and that puts together in the order that we can consider to be grammatically correct. But the modifiers and the order that things are shared in a language like Japanese are completely different. You know that, and I don't speak Japanese or Chinese or some other, whatever, very, very radically different structured language. But they might not say a cold glass of water. It might be something completely different, like water, glass, and then cold, or something like that. So just the order is what I'm trying to say. So you have this baked in to your perception sense of linearity that comes from the English language, if you are a primary English language speaker, or most of the Romance languages that are also related to English, even though English is not a Romance language. I know this. But your brain is structured differently if your primary language is Chinese or Japanese, or people from another time place, like the Maya or Egyptians who used hieroglyphics. It's a different way. Like we read something in a linear sentence, the cat went, or the glass is cold. But if you have a hieroglyphic, you get all information at once. It's a picture that's got like a glass, and it's cold, and it's a cat, and the cat's going out the door, all at once. Different than linear. So you have these, that's a long way of me being able to say with examples and analogies that you have as an innate matter, an innate aspect of your cultural lens that you look at to perceive the world, preconceptions and cultural flavors that make you create the world in a certain way. The expectations that you have in daily waking life have everything to do with the world that you perceive and receive with your five senses. And then, of course, that momentum carries onward into whatever level of after existence you have when you are no longer in the physical. That momentum of perception and expectation and then reality creation continues onward. So the ovens in front of your eyes are culturally flavored, and the things that you bake with your perception are very much rooted in your cultural paradigm and expectations of what you will see and what you will experience and what you will create. But there is not one truth that is more truthful than the other truths. These are all different flavors of ice cream, different flavors of bread, to stick with the analogy, that you are making as your self state, your God, split up into all these many multiple fractals of self, some of whom speak English, some of whom speak Chinese, some of whom were ancient Mayans and used hieroglyphics. The differences are creating different flavors of French bread or croissant or whatever, Italian bread, or naan from, India. But these are all the same thing happening. Your perception is taking the potentials of the waveform of the fifth dimension and higher and turning it into actual experienced realities. So I'm going to get to the question now while it's still relevant, but as a brief aside, that activity happens every moment of your day. The Big Bang is constantly happening. You're constantly, I just created the world. Like, guys, I'm tired. I just created the world. I just created the world again. I just created the world again. I created the world again and again and again and again. So the Big Bang, in using your analogies that you're familiar with in this cultural paradigm, didn't happen a long, long time ago. It actually happened one second ago. It happens in every second. It happens in every moment. You are literally creating that expansion of the cosmos. And what I talked about last week in terms of the beginning starting point, the 0th dimension where all of my fingertips are together, into a line, into a plane, into a 3rd dimensional box, into a 4th dimensional linear time structure, into a waveform, into a larger time tapestry structure. You're doing that every minute. That concept of what makes God as the 0th dimension with the totality state and all information and infinity, everything packed up into one like juicy little morsel over there. What makes that expand into the 1st dimension? That God has to have this notion. What would it be like if part of me wasn't over here with me, but was instead somewhere else? But there is nowhere else. Everything is here. There's nowhere else. So first you have to invent somewhere else. Then you have to invent a way for part of me to be somewhere else. Then you have to invent the connecting integument of events and reality structures that make it possible for me to be somewhere else. And you literally do this every single moment that you are navigating reality and perceiving. That's deep stuff. Mostly people are unconscious and they're on autopilot. They're just driving along, not really thinking about doing very much at all. But that is the diminished or genetically modified human, that when you are in your totality state, my back goes up, when you're in your totality state, you're driving along or walking along and you're like, wow, I am creating reality. This is me going along. I'm like, I'm creating reality. I'm creating reality. I'm creating reality in every moment. And then of course, there is the responsibility of, I'm creating reality. I want to change or shift reality and create the reality that is the ideal structure that represents coherence and health and longevity of the entirety. So then once you remember that you're actually creating reality, you're like, I'm baking bread or I'm baking reality cookies. Like, I'm gonna bake some good stuff. I don't want to burn these cookies. I want to make them good stuff. Burnt cookies equals non-desirable events. So now, thank you for waiting while I got on over here. So first I'm just going to start with the most recent comment that is most relevant. Pedro, thank you for being here. Thank you for being a long-term student. Pedro says, consciousness is like the light in old film movies. Yes, yes, yes. You totally got it. So that's a beautiful segue for me to be able to talk about this. So movies that are made out of film. You have a long film strip. Let's draw it. This is really good. Let's draw it. Clear out all of this stuff. No, actually keep it. Ooh, guys, I'm keeping it and I'm taking the visual analogy further. So this is an old-fashioned film strip. Not a video or digital movie, but an old-fashioned film strip. It's not perfectly drawn. And every single one of these represents a frame. I'm going to draw every frame because I have to. That I also have a lot of obsessive tendencies where I'm like, I have to do it. Okay, so just bear with me. Good. All right. Oh, and another person is entering. There we go. Beautiful. So here's the beginning, B for beginning of the movie. And here's the end. And B also for birth, and E for end. And what you have is, the film projector. We'll draw this blue apparatus. Blue apparatus here represents the film projector. And the film runs through the film projector, and there's a cone of light that comes out of the film projector. And it projects these onto a big giant movie screen. Here's the big giant movie screen, and here's everybody eating their popcorn, and here's everybody watching it. These events, ... translate onto the movie screen. And so what you have is These are static potentials. Every single one of these, wait, I switched to a different color so that I won't confuse you. Every single one of these frames represents a static slice or moment that is, through this perception mechanism, seamlessly woven together into what appears to be a continuum. My hand appears to move across the movie screen because of the frame rate. So the frame rate of each one of these static images, now we have to draw your eyeball. Let's get an eyeball color. Here is you. This is your eye in profile. So those are your eyelashes, and here's the curved cornea of your lens, and here's your iris, all right? This is you as the observer. The frames have to flash. They have to flash across the screen at a particular rate, 26 frames per second or faster, in order for it to appear as if the movie is a seamless, smooth motion. And if it is slower than 26 frames per second, it looks like an old jerky movie, like one of those Charlie Chaplin films where people kind of run around and they look, their movements do not look very smooth at all, because they hadn't yet optimized the speed of film. More recently, in the 20th century, the speed of film has been optimized to create super slow motion. And when you watch, let me just drink a little bit of water here. When you watch a commercial, because most commercials are filmed, well, the way it used to be, the old commercials. If you have an old commercial where there's like a vanilla sundae, you've got vanilla ice cream and then they're pouring like the chocolate sauce on top of the vanilla sundae, and it goes in super slow motion. The chocolate sauce goes like glug, 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 or like maple syrup like pouring on top of the pancakes, glug, glug, glug. It is filmed in super slow motion. So what that means is it's more than 26 frames per minute. And that means that you get high definition. None of this relates to present filmmaking and movie making and video visuals sharing, because now it is all done through video, and video has a different refresh rate, and I'll describe that all to you as well. But the point is, when you have film that is moving at a different rate that is faster than 26 frames per second, you get high def. You get a lot of information. Wait, I'll switch back to my face. You get more information than you had in just 26 frames per second, all right? And that more information state means that you can see like every single movement of the syrup as it's flowing over the sundae. You can see every single detail of the texture of the ice cream. You can see every single detail of the way that the food is put together. There's a reason why they did it mostly for food, for advertising, because it's hypnotic. It's hypnotic and it speaks beyond your rational mind, and you look at that and you're like, I want to eat that. That's so good. I want to eat it. It looks so good. Now let's switch to you as the projector. Your chakras have a particular rate at which they spin. And this relates to, this is actually teaching for later in the semester, but I'm jumping into it right now. It's called the zoetrope, or wheel of life. And this is ancient animation. Ancient animation from like the 1500s, they would make a drum or a cylinder that had regular slits cut in the side of it, like a barrel. And then they would spin it around. So it's spinning around and around and around. And they would take a piece of, I don't have a piece of paper. They would take a piece of paper and they would draw stick figures or like pieces of a horse on it, and they would put it inside of the cylinder. And then when you looked at that, it was early animation is what I'm trying to say. It spun around very, very fast. The flicker rate roughly matched the flicker rate of your perception, the requirements of your perception, and your mind, your brain, and your eyesight and neural signaling smears those images together to create a continuous movement. This is similar to if you ever did this with making a little flip book, like maybe your math textbook. Maybe you were bored in class in 4th grade, and instead of paying attention to your teacher, you drew stick figures in the margins of your math textbook, and then you flip the pages. Flip book. And you can do this at home. It's tons and tons and tons of fun. This is very old-fashioned animation. How does this work? So your eyesight perception, system of perception, is created to see a static image and then another static image, and interpret them beyond their static flat nature, to tie them together with integument of perception, and to create, fill in the blank, a smooth movement between these two things. So if you have one frame where the stick figure has its arm up like this, and one frame where the stick figure has their arm at an angle, your mind, eyesight, retina, and perception fill in the blank of arm movement from here to here. In neurology and psychology, that phenomenon is known as persistence of vision. And what that means is that you're looking at, when you go to the movies, you're looking at static images that you, as the perceiver, you're not only baking reality with the ovens in front of your eyes, you are tying together static moments of reality into a smooth movement that looks like a continuum as opposed to discrete moments. And that relates exactly in analogy to this structure over here. You bouncing down the timelines with I'm sorry, because I just got a distraction in my mind. Your impulse, your purple impulse, being the real version of you, bouncing between these static, discrete versions of self. But it is your perception that ties that together into a seamless reality structure, so that I don't feel, most of us do not feel, like, okay, whatever, 235, that was 235, a discrete compartmentalized moment, and now I'm at 300. And what really happens is it feels like you flow. There's a flow of time. That flow of time is directly related to the miracle of your own perception and the miraculous nature of yourself as a supercomputer. Think about the processing power that it takes to do that. Think about the processing power that it takes to look at and perceive all of these technically static objects that are in your environment. Like, here's a freeze frame, here's a freeze frame, here's a freeze frame. And then your perception ties together all of those discrete moments into what looks like a seamless continuum. So when you're walking along, not only are you Big Bang continually giving birth to the world, but you are also tying together in a seamless continuum all of these different things. So I'm walking along, I got trees blowing in the wind, I've got butterflies flying by, I've got my dog walking along, all of these motions. Or if you ever have looked at like a scarf blowing in the breeze, or your whatever, hanging out your laundry and the sheets are blowing in the breeze, you're creating that. That is you, because technically there's really just snapshot of these moments of reality. It is you, the conscious observer, who is creating the integument, which is in your body. Your integument is your fascia, your tendons, everything that holds your stuff together. You are creating that time integument to hold together these discrete moments in time. This is, again, a huge empowerment teaching, because when you become aware of that, you're not just like, wow, like I'm sitting here like a bump on a log. Everything else is doing everything for me, and I mean nothing. That's my SpongeBob face. You're like, no, I am an empowered observer. I'm giving birth to the world over and over, even in one moment, and I'm using a huge amount of my own internal processing power, like a supercomputer, to tie together these discrete moments into a coherent, holistic whole that we call life. That really should be you going like, whoa, 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 wait a minute, I'm super smart. Wait a minute, I'm a super smart, divine supercomputer. Yes, divine biological supercomputer, because you know I'm not into transhumanism and all of that. I'm not like that. So you tie together all of these discrete moments. You're a genius, is what I'm trying to say. You're a genius, and I want you to embody that and claim that and know that. And you are performing consciousness-based miracles all the time, even as you go through what would be considered your boring, mundane tasks. Washing the dishes, I'm scrubbing the egg pan. I'm like, I'm a genius, I'm a genius, I'm a genius. Yes. And it lends a type of profundity. It sanctifies the mundane. Doing more than just sitting around like a bump on a log, doing more than just moving through time, space as a bumbling nonsense person. You are very, very an active participant, an active creator, an active co-creator, because again, I'm very big on like, spoiler alert, you're God. You are that divine presence. You are that convergence point that has emanated yourself out here, for lack of a better descriptive term, out and into don't really work, but let's just say that they do. Physicality, reality, because what's really happened is you've profused, like a flower blooms. You like bloomed. You bloomed. You bloomed again. Another flower and another flower and another flower. Like you're the most beautiful garden that has created this multi-dimensional self state, which is who you are right now. Deep, deep, deep stuff. And when you really recognize that and claim that, and you start to say, well, my conscious observership, the ovens in front of my eyes, the waveform potentials of the fifth dimension, and also tying together everything in frame rates, means that I should be able to change the movie of my life. And that's truthful. Not that I think that life is just a movie, because that would be sociopathic, but we're using that as a analogy. So great comment. And Pedro also goes on to say, but what happens with the blocks after we live them? They stay there, and so we can replay them? Beautiful question. And I love you, and I'm hugging you. I love you for your mind. So the previous stick figures that go backward down the time tunnel, yes, they still exist. So for example, my body of 235 still exists. It's back there, quote unquote. Because we have gone down the road, and now we are in the moment of 305, and I'm in my body of 305. Where is my body of 235? It's here. It's in my chakra. It's in my energy field. It's in my field, my standing field of potentialities that surrounds and interpenetrates my body. Now, if you want to know even deeper where it is, body of 235 is a particular recipe or cellular structure where I have this many cells that are doing this much stuff in my body. And what happens is your cells have a cell turnover rate. That means that not all of them live for the entirety of your lifespan. Some of them almost do, like some of the neurological cells that go up and down your spine and your brain cells, they can live for like 60 years and sometimes longer. But when we talk about epithelial cells, your skin cells, the cells that line your digestive tract, blood cells, these guys don't last forever. They are here one day and then they're gone very soon. They get used up pretty fast. So you're constantly creating new ones. Get it? Like, you guys know about dead skin cells. Like, that's just normal in your life. You're like, oh, if I exfoliate the outside of my skin, don't worry, I'm losing skin cells. No, don't worry, you'll make more. That's the whole point. You have layers underneath that are stem cells that will make more and come to the front, and it usually takes a couple of days or a couple of weeks. So if you scratch your hand and you hurt your hand, you don't have to be like, oh no, I'm irreparably damaged. I've lost my cells. Whatever will I do? You'd be like, don't worry. You get better in about a week, because new cells will come from the lower levels of your skin to replace the cells that you lost. So your body of 235 and those cells are going to become irrelevant. My body of 235 and my cellular structure of 235 lives inside of my body right now. But some of those cells are like, this is me, like as an old person, like, I'm old, I'm getting old, I ain't gonna be around forever. And then what's gonna happen is they're gonna die. And my body is going to go through its self-cleansing mechanism, which is called autophagy or autophagy, AUTOPHAGY. Autophagy is usually what happens during the nighttime cleanup process in your body. And it helps if you do some intermittent fasting or if you don't eat for 16 hours, because your body is not busy digesting your whatever sandwich that you had for dinner, especially if you eat dinner at 10 p.m. If you stop eating at 5 p.m. and then you don't have your next meal until 9 a.m., and you don't have to do this every night, but you do it like a couple of times a week, it helps your body's process of autophagy. And that means that all of your immune cells, they're like, oh, this is so nice to have a break. This is all your digestion is like, this is so nice to have a break. I don't have to digest that big giant meatloaf sandwich from 10 p.m. So I've got lots of stuff I can get done. What do I want to do? And it looks around. It's like, what can I clean up? What can I clean up? You're a cell that looks kind of old, and this is me, the old cell. It's like, I knew my time would come. I'm ready to go. And the white blood cells, they're like, okay, time to dismantle you, time to get you out of here. Bye, I'm going. That's my silliness happening here. But that happens in your body, literally. The old cells, the cells tonight in my body, when I go to sleep, and I'm in a restful state and my body is doing its inner house cleaning, those immune cells are going to be going around my body, and they're going to be like, okay, who's old? Who's used up? Who's ready to go? Who's going to get fired from this company that is called Aurora Incorporated? And then it's going to go around and get rid of all of those cells. That's the body of 235. The body of 235 literally is digested by my body processes in the process called autophagy or autophagy. And that is a healthy aspect of our body in this process. So right now we're in these mortal bodies in the body, in the world, or in these mortal bodies in the realm of mortality, where your cells don't last for forever. And you come from a world where you have the genetic potential to be immortal. And in that world, you don't lose your skin cells. Your cells do not have cell turnover. You don't have cell turnover, where you're constantly making new skin cells and new digestive cells and new blood cells. Because you get it, that takes a lot of energy to do that. Think about how much, resources and energy and creative life force it takes to make, like, I'm going to make new skin, and I'm going to make new digestive cells, and I'm going to make new this, and new liver, and new this, and new this. You're using up a lot of your basic foundation creative life force energy just on cell turnover and making a new body for every moment of reality that you're going to inhabit. And we come from a time when we are immortal and where our cells are immortal in a positive way. In this world, they have programmed you to think that immortal cells are bad and wrong and cancer, including a book that is called The Immortal Cells of Henrietta Lacks. And that's where they got a lot of these cell cultures that they use for vaccines. It literally came from a person who had cervical cancer, and her cells refused to die, and they were bad cells, and they killed her. And they're like, let's take these bad cells that killed this lady and use them as cell cultures because they never die. And it's the same cells from the 1950s that have been put into newer and newer and newer petri dishes and cloned. It essentially is what a form of cloning, continually until now. And that's what they put into subcutaneous amendments to the human immune system that are meant to augment the human immune system, but that often have negative consequences and other side effects. I want to be like Kermit sipping the tea. Here's my coffee. Be like, unintended consequences and negative side effects. Sip my tea. There are things that I just won't mention, the unmentionables, but find me on Patron and I'll talk all about it. This is my superfood coffee too, because I'm like, I'm going to need some fortitude today to get through all of this. So, each one of us, because it's mostly an unconscious process, but now that I'm telling you about it, it's going to become more conscious for you, is constantly digesting the body that is no longer relevant. So the bodies, all of those little stick figures going all the way back in time, in the abstract, subtle body energy sense, they still exist as potentials and waveforms in your body that is made of pure light, that is pure waveforms. But in terms of your physical body, you're not in the same body that you were in yesterday as you are in today. Where is the body of yesterday? You partially digested it. And you are still you. That's a big lesson here. That even though the constituent elements of your body have changed, you are still you. I took away some of this and replaced it with some of this, but I am still me. That's big. Because at a certain point, you will change and transform, and you will not have the same form. That's what metamorphose or metamorphosis is. You will not have the same form, but you will still be you. And also, I'm very, very big, oh, my coffee was so good, I'm going to drink more. I'm very, very big on talking to people about this. Reno, not demo. Renovate, not demolish. And this relates to your body transformative ascension processes and also your planet. Because everyone is just like, the planet's screwed up, crunch it up like a ball of toilet paper, throw it in the trash bin. I'm like, no, that's our planet. Don't do that. And also, what we want to do is not demolish everything and then have no place to live and then have to live in a tent. Like, let me just say this like this. Okay. You got a house, like a physical house, the way that I live in a house over here. And let's say that there's aspects of it that need to be fixed up. You have options. One of the options is to demolish your house. Be like, there's mold in my house. I'm gonna just knock the whole entire thing down with a bulldozer. Then I have no place to live. I will live in a tent for several years while I then reconstruct a house. Then I will have a new house to live in. All right? Or you can renovate. Be like, I don't like my house. It's got problems or whatever. There's a problem in the kitchen. There's a leak in the bathroom. What I'm going to do is renovate. Reno, not demo. And that means that you still have the capacity to occupy your house even while you're changing and improving it and fixing its structural flaws. So at one point, I'm going to demolish the kitchen, but I'm still going to have the living room and the bathroom and the bedroom. I'm still going to have a place to be, even though I might have to eat out a lot. And then I fix up the kitchen, then I'm going to demolish the living room. You do it piece by piece. So in your society here on this planet, a lot of people have the mental expectation. Demo, that's like Book of Revelations. Get rid of everything. Fire, floods, pestilence, famine. I'm being very silly, but please don't feel that I'm mocking you. I'm just in a very, very silly mood. I think I'm just like way stressed and overtired. People think that the only transformation process that is valid is a complete demolition, and then you're going to live in a tent and not really have anything for a while you construct the new reality around you. And that also relates to the sense, because Book of Revelations has had a huge impact on human consciousness and expectation. Cultural paradigms, the cultural filter through which you're looking at a lot of things. And it also relates to Big Bang, the sense like, yep, our world Big Banged a long time ago, and then you're going to have the end, dun, 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 the end, then you have the next Big Bang. Like you kind of have that baked into your expectation, but it doesn't have to be that way. Because like with your economy, a lot of people think like, that's it, the economy's going to get wadded up into a big giant ball, throw it in the trash bin, and then we're just not going to have an economy. Like, it's not actually a very good thing to happen in your world, because then the equivalent of living in a tent is like having no economy. You don't have a structure. You don't have what you need, and that is not a positive thing. And that's also because that's part of the Book of Revelation, where it's like, yep, and in one day Babylon fell, and then nobody had anything, and everyone was like, oh no, what am I going to do? Much better to renovate. If you do not like your reality structure, please consider a renovation. If you do not like your economy and find it corrupt and out of balance and favoring the few and harming the many, then please don't wad it up into a big giant ball and throw it in the trash bin. Please consider renovating it. Change it piece by piece while you still have something to occupy. And if you look around, that's actually the positive. I have to stand up because I told you that I'm making a promise to myself. I'm sorry that you see that fan going in the background too. So that because my body is like, I'm tired of sitting so much. So now I'm going to listen to my body. You actually have been doing that. So right now we're on a timeline where you haven't had a big giant financial crash, even though everyone's talking about the crash and expecting it and expecting the flames and fire of revelation to happen. But it's actually very, very positive for you that it has not happened in that way, because I'm a big advocate for a transformation process where you still have life, you still have a place that you occupy, you still have stuff that you do, you still have organized commerce, even while you are figuring stuff out as to how to restructure things moving forward into the future. Metamorphose means change of state, a gentler transition than just pulling the rug out from underneath everyone, being like, that's it, figure it out. Like, I'm just going to live in a tent for a couple of years. You don't want to have to do that. You want to be able to have a seamless transition and to be supported. So please know that there are a lot of good guys in the cosmos, for lack of a better word. There are incredibly adept, positive, very, very highly responsible, galactic level consciousnesses of coherent light and pure thought form, who also don't want you to be quote unquote living in a tent, because they actually do comprehend what the challenges of materiality are. Materiality is everything that you see me doing during this class. Like, I'm thirsty, I'm going to need some water. These positive, coherent galactic light forms are like, we don't want Aurora and the rest of the world to run out of water, because you're gonna die. or run out of food, or run out of superfood smoothie coffee, or run out of whatever are the things that help you to have a body of 235 and be sustained, and also have a body of 318 and be sustained. Because otherwise you're not going to have a body, and then you would still have consciousness, you would still be that purple impulse that can jump from body to body, but you would just not have a place to be. I know this is deep stuff, and part of who we've got on our side, I'm pointing to the sun over here. The sun, remember, the sun emanates possibility and probability based reality structures and is like, I actually love you. The sun actually loves us. We are its children. The sun is our parent. The sun cares about us profoundly in the way that, really good parents. As I also know, sorry, there's a loud trolley going by outside. I know some people have a fraught relationship with their parents or their children, and that sometimes, they might not feel that cared for. But the sun is like an ideal parent that profoundly, profoundly cares about you, cares about us as its children, as its offspring, as its mind creations, and wants to sustain us. So you can also think about this, because you're like, okay, how come there hasn't just been a giant incinerative plasma wave that has kind of just like come across the planet and just incinerate everything, which is also, again, kind of the cultural expectation baked into you from Book of Revelations, because the sun cares about you. And that whole thing in the Bible about like the flood and Noah and wiping away evil in that way, that is deep primary trauma. That is deep ancestral and cultural trauma that you need to overcome in order to really have a sense of the love and the care of the sun and the stars and divinity in caring about you as their role, which is you, in a different form, caring about you in terms of a creation. Like, you've been created, you've been brought into being, and you're cared for. Not just going to be like, that's it, I'm bored with this creation, wipe it all away, either magic eraser, incinerate everyone. That's actually not very loving, not evidence of a huge amount of care. And that's what is written about in one of the Judeo-Christian, like the primary holy texts and cultural thought form foundations of this world, the sense that that is something that happened. So that is something that is happening or has happened in ancient concurrent Atlantis. It's the fall. It's the fall of consciousness. It's the deluge. It's the loss of that divine connection. And it creates this trauma wounding of the sense of abandonment and also the fear that it will happen again. Like, wow, if it happened one time, my shoulders are going down. If it happened one time, it can happen again. Kind of like, whatever, if your mom or your dad drops the ball and they, whatever, forget to pick you up from soccer practice. You're like, I'm sitting here, nobody cares about me, it's raining, how am I ever going to get home? And then if it happened once, it can happen again. What's going to happen? So please try not to perpetuate those negative reality expectations based upon previous traumas. In this generation, we heal those traumas and recognize that that's actually the potential of this life experience, is to recognize, like, not only does it not have to happen again, but you can completely recontextualize what you are experiencing so that nothing like that will ever happen for you again. And in as much as you had, like, the fall of Atlantis or the deluge or something that radically reduced your consciousness in one day or in one moment, in one catastrophe, you can have your radical uplift in one day. Think about that. Think about, because everyone here says, like, well, Rome wasn't built in a day. Like, it's going to take some time. And I know I'm big on, like, saying renovate. But you can have immediate improvements once you start to really recognize that you are big banging in each moment. Kapow, I just created another moment. It's 3:22. I created another moment. I created another body, creating another reality structure, and you recognize that you're creating the integument that ties these things together. This absolutely speaks to the transformative, the metamorphose into the higher dimensional state known as flying rainbow lasagna, when you recognize that you are capable of transforming reality. The inside becomes the outside, and the outside becomes the inside. There's a seamless reality integration. So instead of just persistence of vision, where you tie together these static frames of reality, it is also a persistence of vision in the sense of your reality experience, because humans are also used to this bifurcation where you have your daily waking consciousness, then you have your asleep dream time or your reveries. And I'm free in my reveries, I'm free in my asleep dream time. And then during my daily waking consciousness, like everything is static. There's the world of objective materialism, and stuff is just stuff and doesn't change. And when you have a melding of these two realities, the stuff that you thought was immutable becomes mutable, becomes flexible. Reality structure becomes flexible, transformable, and definitely highly influenced by your consciousness, perception, and cognitive processes. And then you're like, well, wait a minute. If my mind and my perception is affecting reality, let me make good stuff happen. So now let me roll back even a little bit further in the comments. This is all the way back at the beginning that I didn't want to go past too much. And it's also from Pedro. Says, hi, there's something that I still don't understand about ascension and continuity of consciousness. If we ascend, when do we come back to be everyone else? And Trish says, once we ascend, question mark, exclamation point. So this is a very, very beautiful question. It is based in the sense of the linear journey. Like, if you consider multiple timelines to be like multiple lifetimes, I should say. Multiple lifetimes to say, first I lived as this guy, and then I died or I ascended. Then I lived as this guy, then I died or I ascended. Then I lived as this guy, and I died or I ascended. But ascension is the culminative moment that is synchronous. Where's my pen? I am lost. I don't know where my pen is. But anyway, now I will try to draw without my actual pen. I'm just going to draw, I'm finger painting now. Synchronous to all of the other ascensions that are happening. So when you ascend, you go through the time vortex, which is shaped like this, and you make it through this little wormhole on the path of least likelihood, going up here, and you get to infinity. There is another complementary life over here in green. That is also you if you expand and dilate your definition of self. And that definition of self is also going through the refinery of consciousness and goes up the path of least likelihood and makes it here to infinity. And then there's Mr. Green, there's Mr. Red, this is like Clue, there's Professor Plum, there's everybody. This guy in red is also achieving that. And then also this one in blue, because I'm obsessive and I have to draw the entire structure. I can't leave it halfway finished. And then there's that, which is another life. Here I have just drawn a time diagram of at least 4 lives that come together in this central convergence point that is known as singularity, or the 0th dimension, or the journey back to God self state. And they get back there not in order. Like this would be 1, like Sesame Street, 1, 2, 3, 4. It doesn't happen like that. It actually happens all at once. And it makes a shape that looks like this. I'm squinting and making silly faces. It looks like this. It makes a shape that looks like this. Get the annotation. Boom. It makes a shape that looks like this. Here is, let's use the same colors. Well, I won't use the same colors. Here is one path of least likelihood. Ascend, 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 ascend. Except I couldn't draw them all at the same time because my pen doesn't work that way. My pen is a linear pen. But please use your mind to be non-linear. That is how this shape is created. This is why I didn't want to just gloss over this shape and be like, blah, 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 moving onward, 1 + 1 = 2, it's the foundation of math. This shape really represents multiple different incarnations that you are living at the same time or concurrently. I don't have time language for this. My brain's exploding. You are, because a lot of people think in terms of, I'm going to do a regression. I'm going to find out who I was in a past life. But these are actually concurrent lives. These are not past lives. These are concurrent lives, not past lives. So you are living their challenges even as you are living your own challenges. They have not ascended yet. You have not ascended yet. In that moment that you click into being with your ascension pathway, I'm still looking for my pen, I can't find it. When you become in perfect alignment with your own divine presence, these other aspects of yourself synchronize at exactly the same moment in hyperspace, and they also click into being, into that alignment at the same time, creating this perfect double torus structure. This is actually happening all throughout your life, not just in the moment of ascension. Every single experience that you are having is a fractal and an analog to the other versions of yourself in different bodies that are experiencing similar activities. So there's a version of you, guys, that is what you would call like Neolithic or Stone Age, and a version of me as well. And we're sitting around the campfire. It's happening right now. It didn't happen millions of years ago. It's happening right now. And we're talking about deep stuff. We're looking up at the stars. We're talking about the basic nature of consciousness. We're talking about God or cosmology. Where does stuff come from? How does it come into being? And then there's also a version of all of us that exists, let's say, in the 1500s, you know, going through the Renaissance, or in ancient Greece. We're all wearing togas, all right? We're in ancient Greece. We're in one of those amphitheaters, and there's an orator talking about these concepts and drawing things with a stick on the sand. And you're all looking down and be like, oh, there's a diagram there. I'm learning about this. I'm learning about this. And we're talking about shapes of time and how reality is shaped. And then there's now, our present moment now as we define it with our cognitive abilities, using a computer to be able to, you know, draw diagrams, think about these things, talk about them, share our concepts and share our journeys. And then there's even the future self, according to linear submerged time experience, which would be, you could think of it like in an otherworldly, higher dimension, on a spaceship, different galactic plane, but a very, very highly advanced technological aspect of self that is doing exactly the same thing. We're all sitting around as a group and talking about like, well, where do the stars come from, and where does light come from, and who is God, and how did the world come into being? All of these slices of reality in the time tapestry are happening at the same time. You have layer, 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 layer. And in a tapestry, like if you have a needle with thread, you go through all of the layers of the fabric. You sew through all of the layers of the fabric. So if you have all of these stacked up layers of time, and each one is, you know, a different life experience or life definition, discrete partition that you're experiencing, but the things that you're experiencing pierce through every layer of time. So in this moment, it's actually a good example of a good moment to use, because it's actually a relatively positive activity. You know, it's not a traumatic activity that we're experiencing right now. It's positive consciousness building and life affirming, getting together and talking about the true nature of reality. But you can also think about this in terms of great life joys and also in terms of life traumas. That if you can imagine, like if you had a car accident or something like that, like in one layer of reality, boom, you have a car accident. That's where the needle of awareness is piercing through there. But in another one, it's like, oh, you were whatever, a knight in battle, and you got your, you know, your head caved in by someone, you know, smashing you in a war. And in another one, you were running from a wild animal in Neolithic times, and you, whatever, ran over a cliff, or the animal bit you on your leg. A traumatic event that happens that is a concurrent analog of all of these things. So different flavors of the same type of event. And then there's the challenge. Like if it was a car accident, then you're like, you're gonna have to get better from that. If it was a war injury, then you're like gonna have to, you know, whatever. They didn't have very good medical care. And then of course, Neolithic times, running from an animal, you know, the challenge of recovery is what I would say. That would be recovering from a trauma. And then there would be something that could be a great joy that pierces through every single layer of your reality structure. That could be like the moment that you give birth to your child, or, you know, the moment that you have some huge accomplishment, like whatever, you finish a marathon, you're like, yes, like I cross the finish line, I've reached my life goal. And in one time, it's like your life goal is running a marathon, and another time your life goal is whatever, put it whatever it was, climbing a particular mountain, or sailing successfully from one island to another. And you get to the other island, you're like, yes, like I made it here, I did it. That moment of yes. These are events that echo across time, and they echo beyond the boundaries of your epidermis, because these time structures represent multiple selves, not just multiple within one incarnation, but multiple parallel selves across many different lifetimes. There's a movie and a book. The movie's pretty good, book is excellent, called Cloud Atlas, that's really worth delving into. And I say so because it is a cultural integument that is helping people of this linear time space to conceive of what multidimensional experience is like. So the story is told in a non-linear sense, and the same actors play roles in these various different levels of reality. One level of reality is super cool, futuristic, and very clean. One level of reality is like very war-torn and dirty and dangerous. They're all the same actors, so you get the sense of the same face, but they're having these different reality experiences, but they're having parallel challenges. You face parallel challenges. So that's why the analog of what you are experiencing here and what you experienced or are concurrently experiencing in ancient Atlantis is so powerful. There was an apparatus that was deployed in ancient or concurrent Atlantis that was a mind control, MK. It was an artificial Merkaba, and it was absolutely meant to turn everybody into beep 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 beep, robotoid, non-volitional, mind-controlled zombies. And then you've got what's going on right now with the millimeter waves, let's call it that. The millimeter waves that are not made for human communication facilities, but instead are made with a much larger, broader, deeper, more nefarious and malevolent intention. It's not just about making it possible for you to download movies at a faster rate or receive. The Starlink satellite system is not meant so that impoverished people in rural communities can finally access the internet and join with their more abundant fellow men in society and receive greater opportunities. I hope the sarcasm is dripping off of my voice like the chocolate going over the sundae that I was describing before. Palpable sarcasm there. Why? Because Starlink satellite is not in any way meant to be something that is uplifting for humanity. It's meant to be a consciousness reduction device, so that humans cannot connect effectively to their divine consciousness. And that is analogous to what was going on in ancient Atlantis. If you're wondering what is glowing green on my head, it is actually one of my iba crystals that I have in my hair because I'm working on the crown chakra up there. So I just really wanted to say that if you're like, what is going on? Aurora, what is emitting from your head? Yes, that is actually crystal energy that is happening up there. You face similar challenges between what you are going through right now here in terms of maintaining your own sanity, your own self-volition, your own energy boundaries, and your own willpower that you faced or face in ancient concurrent Atlantis. It's not different challenges, it's the same challenge spread across time. Same challenge. And so it's not like saying the deluge already happened. The deluge is imminent. The peril is imminent. And the peril in this world is also imminent. But that's why you have to think about this not in the sense of linear life, like I already lived that life and everything crashed down. We went into the SHIT and now we're here. No. You're about to go into the SHIT, but you haven't been there yet. And you are here in this, incepted into this level of the dream reality to be able to write a better story. Dun, 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 dun. That's what Flying Rainbow Lasagna is. So I want to talk a little bit of that about Flying Rainbow Lasagna, and then talk about the actual energy pathways of the chakras themselves. But this represents the higher dimensional level of empowerment. Every time you add an additional dimension, you add an additional degree of freedom. You are no longer a little car that drives on the flat plane of time. You now are able to fly to wherever you want. So when you lasagna, it's not like, oh, bad stuff happened in the past, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, now I'm down here in the linear story of the universe. You are now recognizing, oh, I am living concurrently in all of these different time places, and the challenges that I face there are analogous to the challenges that I face here. And changes and willpower that I exert here radiates and ripples outward, telescopes into my own incarnate past and into the potentials of my future, and radiates across time, which is when I also say, like, time is like piles of tapestry where the needle goes through and pierces through an event, pierces through all of these different layers of reality. So you become empowered. You become empowered because you have a different perspective and viewpoint, and a cosmological definition of how the cosmos is structured, to be able to say, the past is mutable. So this inner to outer is even beyond the sense of the bifurcation of your daily waking consciousness versus your dream consciousness. It is a bringing together of formerly divergent worlds, including the past and the future. Including the past and the future. Including the past and the future. So, ascension, oh, I found my pen. Ascension is not something that has already happened for a different version of yourself. Like, name somebody famous, a famous ascended master. It hasn't just happened for that guy, and now you're like, that guy's ascended, but now I'm trying to ascend. That guy is in the process of ascending, and you are in the process of ascending. And the structure, when you actually get, now that I found my pen, I can draw, when you actually get all of these lives that are all you, ascending at once, the structure that you get is very much like a dandelion. We draw purple in the middle. Here is the 0th dimension and the destination, the culmination, and then here's, I'll just use the same color, here's all of these pathways that culminate and converge. That's not a perfect line. That's not a perfect line. Oh my God, I can't take it. That's not a perfect line. Life is so hard. Please hug me. That's better. They all converge there. They all converge there. They all converge there. And I'm going to draw so many of them. And they're sticking out towards you, and they're sticking away from the camera. They're towards you, away from the camera. A big, giant, looks like a dandelion seed head of all of these many, 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 countless versions of yourself that all ascend all at once. And they all have that moment. Bing, 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 bing. I'm God. And that also is not just your human self. It is yourself as ecosystem. It is not just this dandelion seed head shape made out of humans who ascend. My dog is ascending. The plants and trees and microbes are ascending. The Lao Tzu, who is the founder of Taoism, is said to have ascended by, like, floating upward with his horse. I bring that as a very positive example. Like, if that guy's gonna ascend with his horse, I'm gonna ascend with my dog. But you're gonna ascend basically with your ecosystem. You're gonna ascend with your microbiome. You're gonna ascend with the plants and animals that are around you. It's a very ethnocentric, anthropocentric hubris. Not really hubris, but like flawed expectation that heaven is only occupied by humans. No, there are blades of grass in heaven, or, you know, the ascended reality structure. There are blades of grass there. There are beautiful butterflies there. All of these organisms have their own time cone, their own time vortex, that they're in a process of self-refinement, getting to the point where they click into a perfect alignment with themselves as God. And they all have observership. Let me drink more to sustain myself on this marathon. They all have observership. So a butterfly has observership. My dog has observership. Trees and blades of grass all have observership. They're all creating reality. Reality is a very large, dynamic is a good word, collective art project. And humans are not the only painters. Humans are not the only contributors to the beauty of the world. That's part of that anthropocentrism, and it comes very much out of the Bible. The sense of humans being at the top of the food chain, humans being at the top of the consciousness pyramid, humans being created here to exploit and use and diminish all the other organisms and creatures. And I don't ascribe to that there are huge, huge flaws as in the presumptions there. That's why I used hubris. But no, your reality creation and the ovens in front of your eyes as a human is equal to, I would say, the ovens in front of the nose of a dog, because their primary sense is olfactory. Or the oven, or even a butterfly, which basically navigates on pheromones, or a bee, or a redwood. Redwood trees don't have eyes. So Aurora, redwood trees don't have eyes. And so therefore, how can they have ovens in front of their eyes? Redwood trees perceive. They perceive, but they don't have a face and two eyes and one nose and one mouth. And so humans tend to say, like, their perception is nanny poo poo, not the same as my perception. It's totally valid. They perceive in ways that are tree-centric and that are valid to them, and that they are collapsing reality structures and waveform potentials out of the fifth dimension using their capacity to observe. So the entire ecosystem is observing, and it is reciprocal. Trees observe you and you observe trees, and you're both creating each other, and you're both creating reality structures. And both you and trees and the planet want to create reality structures where you are alive, as opposed to dead or incinerated or no longer viable in some sense. And all of it is you. You are a redwood tree, but just on a very, very different path. Come from a very, very different direction, but that's you. And also, humans tend to underappreciate the complexity of life. Like a dolphin, dolphins have more convolutions in the surface of their cerebrum than humans do. Therefore, they are actually smarter. They have more neural connections, more neural connectivity, and they are a very, very intelligent species that humans don't always recognize and validate. And humans have this bifurcation of their daytime waking consciousness versus their nighttime dreaming consciousness, but dolphins are already lasagna because they sleep one hemisphere at a time. So they're like, my left hemisphere is asleep, but my right hemisphere is awake. Now my right hemisphere goes to sleep, and my left hemisphere is awake. They are always half awake and half asleep. And they are always integrating seamlessly their dreamtime reality with their daily waking experience. So dolphins, there you have a lot to learn from dolphins, and they are amazing, complex creatures, and they deserve to have their own level of recognition at the same level as humans, or greater. They're actually smarter, and they're so smart that they would never, put up with some of the cultural mandates that humans have over here. So this also speaks a lot to the sense of ascended masters. Like if, Aurora, my rational intellectual mind says, if no one has ascended yet, then how can I be talking to ascended masters, like in my meditations or my reveries or something like that? And the answer is your way of communicating with them telepathically would have to be non-local. Non-local meaning not based in time and space, like you call someone on the phone. You don't call ascended masters on the phone and be like, ring ring, like I'd like to speak to Saint Germain, like is he there? You talk to them through your mind and through your telepathy and through your highest senses, which are non-local, meaning you can talk to someone from 10 million years ago, or you can talk to someone from 10 million years in the future. I call it the time phone. So this in your mind is your time phone, and you are able to use that to be able to talk to anyone. And that is how you're able to talk to those levels of consciousness. But you are all of these things. And there's even some really interesting like analogs and parallels to observable science-based thought forms. There was a physicist named Richard Feynman, and he was kind of a far-out character, and he proposed a theory that there was only one photon. That there was only one photon that was emitted, and then it went forward on its pathway through time, and then it reversed. And then it went on a different pathway through time. And then it reversed. And then it went back on a different pathway through time. And that one photon is like the needle of an embroidery on a surface of time. Just constantly going back and forth, doing all of these wild patterns and embroidery. And that really, it's a very expansive way of thinking. Like I don't want to validate all of the limitations of physics and science because a lot of it is based in flawed presumptions, but that guy had a lot of very flexible mind considerations that are worth encompassing. Pedro says, heaven needs pins so angels can dance on the tip. Yes, exactly. Exactly. Very well said. So let me go a little bit more into the material of what I have to share today that has to do with the abstraction of this shape and how energy actually flows around this shape. So I talked about the genesis of this shape as being these dimplings of these different vectors that come from this way. And I talked about that in last week's class as those vectors being a part of a larger matrix, and matrix not being a bad thing. Let me erase this whiteboard on over here. Not being a bad thing, because the matrix with Keanu Reeves is like, I want to get out of the matrix, but the matrix can be a positive, nourishing place. So here I'm going to draw it as a grid with squares. But please understand that it's actually a sphere, like what I drew in that other drawing that I just shared with you. So we've got singularity in the 0th dimension here, but we've also got singularity in the 0th dimension here, and here, and here, and here. But those are all the same doorways. Sorry, those are all the same infinity. Those are all different doorways to the same infinity. And there's an impulse. There we go. Student is coming in. There's an impulse that comes in this direction. And that impulse is literally what creates the stretching of the fabric of space-time reality so that it is stretched like this. The impulse going in that direction stretches that, and then this gets erased. Got it? And then I'll do it in the other directions too, because you know I have problems and I'm obsessive. Let's do it. Draw it, because then we're going to have this one is going to go like this. And this one is going to go like this. And this one is going to go like this. And this one is going to go like this. And now erase out their starting points. Erase, erase, erase. And when all of those purple lines, vectors, converge at the center, what happens is this one meets its mirror opposite. That's supposed to be a mirror opposite. So they're coming, they're going, and then kapow, they meet their mirror opposite. And what happens is the perfection of their meeting transfers that force in the opposite direction. They turn right around and they go in the opposite direction. And that happens with the other ones that are coming from, you would call it the horizontal directions too. This one is coming over to here, and this one is coming over to here. And they meet in the middle in a perfect balance of forces, and now I'll just use a different color, and then they all jump into this direction over here. And when they jump into this direction over here, guess what happens? You are smart. I can already tell that you know what's going to happen. They make this membrane that is over here, this membrane that's over here, now is going to get stretched in this direction. And in this direction. And in this direction, and in this direction. And you know that I'm obsessive, and I have to make it go like that, and in that direction. And this isn't just, this is an example of, 4 of these happening, but there are all of these. I'm gonna make a lot of dots now, guys, because there's this one here, and there's this one here, and then there's this one up here, and then there's this one over here, and then there's this one over here, and then there's this one here, and this one here, and this one here, and this one here, and I should just make an animation of this to be able to speak with pictures, and this one here, and they are all, you are having this constant oscillation between the singularity in these straight lines of movement. And again, hat tip to the person, their profile is just named S. They wanted to know about whether this is a straight vector, and it is, but I'll also tell you this. And I wrote this in my comment. And I'm going to drive you crazy now. You go, don't drive us crazy. I'm going to drive you crazy now. It is a straight line, but what you're actually looking at is a hula hoop on its edge. So like, here's a hula hoop on its edge, right? Kind of an oval, and this is the part that's closer to you, and then the other part is further away from you. What you're looking at when you see these lines are actually hula hoops on edge. Like this is actually a hula hoop on its edge over here. but you're just not seeing the curved nature as it is going away from you in the other direction. So it looks to you, first of all, like it's finite, and it looks to you like it is straight, but it is actually curved and it is actually infinite because it's actually circle on its edge. So the truthfulness of my statement is that all of these energy patterns are made from circles going around in circles, but some of those circles are on edge and we don't perceive them as circles, we perceive them as straight lines in these oscillations going back and forth across these straight lines. I know it's fun stuff, and again, you can think about it if you ever have insomnia and you can't fall asleep in the middle of the night. Just think about, like, how can a line be a finite line also be a curved infinite circular feature? But it is. And let's talk about how energy flows around one of these torus shapes. I just want to find a good color. So this is the torus in cross section. And you have energy that flows in a figure eight. So here I'm going to draw one figure eight. Let's say we're starting point up here. Here's one figure eight. And then you also have the next figure eight that it makes, which is kind of like this. It's going to be hard. I'm going to do it because I'm drawing something that is, you got it, from the magic of perspective, you got it. And that we draw, it's going to end up making the entire chakra shape all the way around. Here's another one. It's kind of coming like this, going like this, then going like this, then going like this, then going like this, then going like this. All right? So you have all of those figure eights that all fit together in order to make the chakra shape. That's one way to think about it. My mind wants to go in two different directions now. The first thing I want to tell you about is the spiral pathway outward and then inward back to the singularity. And then the next thing I want to tell you about is creating the chakras the way that we built the chakra, like the 0th dimension. So first I'm going to do the spiral pathway. Clear these guys out. Start with red. Here's the singularity. We've already got you over here. And then the first thing that happens is, let's say you're going to emanate out into red. Awesome, I'm in the physical realm. This is so cool. And now I'm going to go right back to the singularity. I'm going right back home, right? No, wrong. In order to get back to purple, what you have to do now, you go into the singularity, which is like a revolving door. And you don't come out into the singularity where you started with, your starting point. You actually come out into the orange level. Now I'm going to go around the orange level. Great, now I'm coming back to singularity. Now I'm going to come out back home where I started. Nope. Now you're going to go into the singularity and you're going to come out on the yellow level. Great, now this is repetitive. I'm going to go home. I'm going to get home. I'm going to get home. Nope. Now you're going to go cycle through green. Now I'm going to get home. Now I'm going to get home. Now I'm going to get home. Nope. Now you're going to go through the singularity and you're going to cycle through light blue. Not home yet. Now you're going to go through the singularity and you're going to circulate through dark blue. And now you're going to get home to violet. All right? So it is a concentric circle, spiral-like pathway. Every single time these figure eights go through your chakras. And that also relates to, let's do a picture. I must squint and scroll. It's down here. 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 Hold on one second, because I know that I have this totally prepared. You guys know I'm totally prepared for class. This one right here. I have to go back to me. My screen, I can't see anything. I don't know where things are. When you annotate, all right, have this energy apparatus that is your multi-layered self over here, you have energy that flows through all of the layers of your being, coming from the primacy of white light here, and then it flows through your violet chakra, and through your blue chakra, and through the turquoise chakra, and then through the green chakra. You can see where I'm going. I hope you can see that I'm following these actual pencil lines as best I can. And then we're back here to the midpoint. Oh, wait. That one doesn't match up very well. But now I'm going into the outer part of the yellow chakra. And then I'm going to go on to the outer part of the orange chakra. It's just hard. Thank you for helping me. And then you would, of course, go into one that's off the screen, that is the red one. I know that wasn't the best drawing. Please bear with me. The point being that you have the primary impulse of consciousness and of light that comes initially from the highest dimensional aspect of unity consciousness, and then flows in these larger spiral figure eights all throughout your body, all throughout every layer of your body. And that is going from the specific to the general. It is a dilution of energy, or a refraction of energy. Like when you have the white light from the sun that gets refracted into its rainbows, and it fans outward as many different individuated colors. Then you have the refocusing, an energy impulse, I'll just use a different color, that comes from the red chakra, and then it circulates upward through your red chakra, upward through your orange chakra, upward through your yellow chakra, upward through your green chakra, upward through turquoise, upward through dark blue, and then upward through violet, and then it goes back up to here. So you have a complement. These are two-way highways, and there's a reason for that. All of this is about pure energy. And once you master the concept of how energy is flowing in this shape, you can apply that to anything that has this shape, including physicality, electromagnetism. Any place where you have, these are all two-way roads. I wanted to say any place where you have an energy pathway, you can have energy flowing in both directions, both to and from. So you have energy that flows from the source over to here, but then you also have energy that flows from over to here back to the source. That is what makes this a stable shape in reality. If you had a reality structure where the source constantly emanated stuff, where like the zeroth dimension constantly sent stuff out, 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 and never had stuff come in, it would not be sustainable. Because you'd be like, I'm constantly sending stuff out, but never sending stuff in. It's like if you were constantly sending money out or paying stuff and never getting paid and receiving stuff. At a certain point, you'd be like, that's it. I'm out of money and I can't do this anymore. And similarly, if everything went always from the out to the in, at a certain point, everything that's out would be in. And then you wouldn't have anything. So this is a magnificent shape in its stability, that it is a balance of energy forces sending stuff out and energy forces sending stuff in. This is exemplified in your non-physical energy body, your body of subtle energy, pure light, pure information, pure data, pure intelligence, but it is also exemplified in many other places. This is what is known as a standing wave. So a standing wave, a regular wave, this is in physics. Physics describes the physical world, but aspects of the physical world reflect aspects of the non-physical world. So we're actually studying non-physics here. When you have a wave, you have a waveform like it goes across my screen. Here's the peak and here's the trough. Here's the peak and here's the trough. And it tends to flow in a line. But when you've got figure eight, like what I was drawing for you, figure eight, figure eight, figure eight, if you get together enough figure eights, what you have is, a force field, a field, a standing wave. If you have enough coherent waves that stick together, this is my joke that I always make, what do good waffles do? They stick together. If you have enough coherent waves that stick together, their peaks and their troughs, all stick together, then what you have is a standing wave, and you have coherence, and you have longevity. You have something that stays, it remains, it does not dissipate, and it definitely doesn't cancel out. Cancellation is when you have a peak and a trough, and it comes together like this, and the +1 and the -1 cancel out, and then you have a neutrality, you have a zero. So this balance that you have in coherence also creates longevity, in that the system continues and it doesn't cancel out. That's in you. And that's also in larger reality structures. That's in the shape of time on a larger scale. That's in the shape of, let's say, a galaxy that is held together at the gravitational level by the super stretchy fabric of a supermassive black hole at its center. And these are concepts, is what I'm trying to say. The concept of balance, the concept of reciprocity. So the zeroth dimension had to have the concept, like, I'm going to send a piece of me away from me. And it's going to go off and have experiences in the first, second, third, fourth, fifth dimension, and plus, 5D plus. And then what's going to happen? If I keep on sending stuff out, eventually stuff won't be here. Stuff must return here. Stuff must return here in order to have the standing wave, or the coherence and longevity of the cosmos. And those return journeys are everything that relates to you and your journey of consciousness and spiritual attainment. So you have coalesced here in the physicality state as matter, but that is not the end of your journey. You must. It is inevitability. You think of yourself as an inevitability particle, because if you want to have a cosmos, you're going to have to get back to the singularity. All right? If you don't get back to the singularity, you're stuff that is emanated that doesn't go back. And if you don't have that balance of going back, then you can't emanate. You have to have this beautiful, balanced, cyclical, but positive cyclical structure. Just like you have the boundaries of those lines that I was drawing, the singularity, and then the purple line that bounces in between them. It's a continuous journey between finite spaces. So one conception of what a infinite journey is here's a point, and then that point is going to go off endlessly in one direction. Here's an arrow that goes like this off your screen, and my arm gets to be 10 million miles long, and it just keeps going and going and going and going and going. That's one conception of infinity. But infinity can also be an endless journey between two finite boundaries. And that's when you have like two lines at the edges of my shoulders, two planes at the edges of my shoulders, and then what you have is a line that constantly bounces back and forth between these two places. Singularity is here, and singularity is here. And the journey of life is constantly bouncing back and forth between these two places, and also being in perfect focus or in perfect position, which is what coherence is. That is how laser light is created. So a laser in our modern world is organized light. When I say coherent, you can also think organized. Organized light. How are these organized light apparatuses created here? These are two mirrors. So now imagine that I have two mirrors here at my shoulders, and light enters into this area between these two mirrors, and at first it's regular light that's kind of disorganized. It's going all over, doing its own thing. Light tends to fan out when it's doing its own thing. But from bouncing back and forth between here to here to here to here, the light gets organized and coherent. And then at a certain point, all of the peaks and all of the troughs fit together, and then it becomes a beam. And the beam is laser light, and it is focused and is coherent, and it sticks together when it travels, as opposed to disperses hither, thither, and yon, and it travels far. This is like a laser light. It is a focused, coherent aspect of light, and the light is non-optical light, is the light of events, of possibilities and probabilities in time. And the time structure, I could even just end it right there. The time structure is coherent because of the focused aspect, because of the focused behavior of impulses traveling between the different focal points. It's your ascension. You sustain this chakra shape with your ascension, with your journey back home, with your alignment with the source, which is also the destination point. So from this perspective, many people in this, let's call it the community of seekers of spiritual attainment, call it the source, because they're like, yep, that's where I came from. But it is also the destination. That's where I'm going, that's where I'm going, and that's where I must go in order to sustain and uphold the fabric of reality. Because if you don't go there, then you can't be emanated from there. And you have to be emanated from there. So you must go there. And this is the structure. This is like the logic structure, or the structure of being an inevitability particle. So I'm going to do one more thing, then open the floor to questions and comments. Also, I know that this is like an extremely abstract teaching. It's like actually one of my favorites, and I love talking about this stuff, and it's beginner, but it's super, it's foundation, I should say, but it's super advanced. So it's level 1, lesson 2, but it's super advanced stuff and worth lingering over. So if I go back to this whiteboard one more time, if I press the right buttons and do the right thing. Okay, let's talk about, can I clear this all out? Clear it all out. To give you a cleanse your palate. Everybody have a sorbet. All right. How does this relate to my story of last week from the 0th dimension? So let's start off with the 0th dimension. Boom, it's a dot. And that 0th dimension creates a line. And I've drawn this in the past as here's another dot. I just imagine myself not at the 0th dimension, and then I imagine a series of dots connecting this whole entire thing. All right, series of dots, series of dots, series of dots. I have to make all the dots. Good. In building a torus or a chakra shape, you make that line, but what you do is you make it in a circle. So the first dimension is created as a circle shape like this, not a straight line. And then that circle shape, when you put it into, so that's the first dimension, 1. When you make that circle shape move around in a sphere, then you get the second dimension, which is 2, which is going to look like this. So I'm using the magic of perspective to kind of draw these ovals. It's going to look like a globe. All right. Oh, and you know what? I might just pause for a minute. Hold on. Let me pause for a minute. Let me close some doors and make sure that my dog isn't going to bark. Hold on 1 second, guys. Sorry. Hold on a minute. Brief. Apologies for that brief pause. Back to the whiteboard. Boom. The second dimension is when you take that, you could think of it like a hula hoop, and you spin that hula hoop around, and then these are all these other hula hoop shapes that are going around like this and like this and like this, and it creates a sphere. All right, so let's make that 2, the second dimension. And then the third dimension happens when we take that sphere and we make it move in a circle. So from this, to build the dimensions, when we are working with this twin torus shape, we're doing something very similar to what I taught about last week, but we're moving in a circle. So instead of a straight line, the first thing that we're creating is a hula hoop, all right? And then the next thing we're creating is many, many hula hoops together until we get a sphere or a ball. And then the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to take that ball and move it in a circle around like this. And as you move it around like that, what you end up creating is this kind of tunnel shape. This becomes kind of a tunnel in here. So this is, oops, it's so hard for me to draw. Here. This is the torus, because you end up getting this vortex there and vortex there, or a donut shape. And then you have this as the outer part of the torus. So I think you guys can definitely see that. This ends up, this is hollow. Where this arrow is, that is hollow, and it is like a tunnel. And the tunnel is literally made by the, I'll just go back to my face. The motion of the sphere spinning around. Do I have anything that is a ball or a sphere here? Nothing easy that I can pick up right now. My hand is a sphere. So here we go. A dot, a circle, turn that circle around like a hula hoop until it becomes a sphere. Now my hand is a sphere. And then I move that in a circle. I move it around and around and around like this. And as it does that, it also kind of rotates at the same time. And as it rotates around and around and around, it creates that initial torus shape where you have just a donut. And this is the inner part of the donut, and then this is the outer part of the donut, and this is the tunnel is where the donut would be made out of cake. The tunnel is the cake if you actually cooked that donut and made it like an actual pastry that you could eat. No, yes. So now we have a red donut torus, and I'm going to draw that for you over here. It's kind of shaped like this. Right? Donut torus. And then what you do with that is you move it in the next highest dimension, which would be the 4th dimension, and that's when you make it tumble end over end. And when you make it tumble end over end, this part connects to this part, and this part connects to this part, and that is when you get those 2 complementary vortices. So here's one more vortex that ends up coming and being created like that. And then here's another vortex here that ends up being created like that. That is another way of conceiving of those vortices don't match. I'm very sad. Make it match. It's a different way of being able to conceive of and draw the building of the torus or toroid shape. So the other way is considering that you're starting off with this super stretchy sphere and have these impulses that dimple it and bring inward to the center. But this is a different and equally valid way of thinking about how it is constructed. And this also relates to some of my lasagna dance movements. So I teach this in my class, my dance movement class, all the time. We talk about the flying rainbow lasagna. Oops. As having, oh my goodness, you know what's so funny? An orgonite fell right into here. That's so awesome. All right. The flying rainbow lasagna as having eight distinct dance movements. Actually four. Well, it depends on how you think about it. All right, but I'll do it for you. So this is happening on a genetic level and also an energetic level. Remember, we showed you that this was kind of like laying down on its side like this. And what we're doing is making it jump up and down like this, making this shape over here. And when that happens, so one of the first movements, okay, just rearrange how I'm going to say this. In your DNA molecular structure itself, you technically have 4 proteins that are like the 4 notes. Turn on my piano is not on. Turn on my piano. This might sound weird. Let's see if there's anything hooked up to it. 4 notes. That sounds weird, but kind of nice. I hope it's not too loud for you. You have 4 notes. Out of those 4 notes is the entirety of life. Everything that you're making, from yourself to cats and birds and redwood trees. Because you put them together in different combinations. Sometimes you've got a combo like this. 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 They are the letters of the alphabet. In exactly the same way you have a limited number of letters of the alphabet, you have 26 options that combine together to make everything from the greatest of your human literature, whatever, Shakespeare, to the silliest comic book or like a manual for your refrigerator. Same 26 letters that are rearranged to carry different levels of information. So you have an almost endless number of combinations that you can make between these different notes to be able to make all of these different musics. We could do this all day. We could do this all day. We can make reality. Lasagna is exactly the same way. You have basic dance movements that are a limited number of dance movements, but within that limitation, you can have an infinity of self-expression. So one of the first movements is the up, down. That's this, the up, down, up, down. And when you make that up, down, you often see me do this dance with my hands. Up, down, up, down. And the next movement that you have is side to side, side to side. So we're moving this time structure in hyperspace. Up, down, and side to side. Side to side, side to side. Here, my orgonite's going to fall out, but I just thought that was so funny that it just fell in there. Orgonite, side to side, side to side. I know I'm getting very silly. Then you've got in, out. In, out. But in, out is shaped like this. In, out, in, out. And then you've got end over end. Tumbling end over end. Those are the 4 basic ways of doing it, but I counted on the count of 8. That's why I hesitated, because I do know I do know math, and I do know my lasagna. But I count the up and the down as a 1 and a 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 7, 8 is tumbling end over end. 7, 8. Like throwing a baseball overhand, pitching a softball underhand. 7, 8. From those basic 8 dance steps, within the multiplicity profusion of the trillions of cells, the nuclei of your body, and your mitochondria, not just nuclear DNA, but also mitochondrial DNA. That's an amazing number of combos that you can make between these basic 4 notes of what you can play. You can play so many amazing and uplifting notes. So you have up, down, side, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And you can within one cell, you can do an up, but then a side, then a down, then an in, then an out, then a tumble, then a untumble. You can do forwards and reverses, and that's just in one cell. And you have a whole orchestra, a whole symphony. In your body, you have trillions and trillions of cells, each of which has its own nucleus, each of which is doing its own unique dance within the nucleus. So again, like I told you about, your autophagy is digesting your body of 235. Not all of your cells are moving in unison. Like, you guys know the Rockettes, right? Like from Radio City in New York City, all the Rockettes, like left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot. Like, they all dance in unison. Your DNA is not like that. All of the cells of your body are not dancing in unison. They're all doing their own unique dance that is complementary and harmonious to the longevity and coherence of your being, but it is not exactly the same. This is analogy for life. This is what you're supposed to be exemplifying in human social dynamics, where you do your own unique dance presence, and so does everybody else. You are not synchronized like the Rockettes, but you are complementary to one another, and you add up to a totality of music or self-expression that is called the symphony of life. Yeah. So within those 4 basic movements of what the flying rainbow lasagna is on a higher dimensional level, you can create an almost infinite, uncountable, incredibly expansive number of combinations and iterations that leads to an enormous amount of expanded freedom. That's what it is to jump off of the time plane. That's what it is. And this is also true time travel. Time travel is not like the H.G. Wells book, where the human man gets into the time travel machine and he presses a button. Here's the lever. Here's the time travel lever. Go into the future. And then he's like, I jumped out of my time travel machine. I looked around, like, that's what the future looks like. Then get into my time travel machine, pull the lever back, go into the past, because that's kind of a linear, like moving forward on or backwards on one number line. And then be like, these are the unevolved beings of the past. True time travel happens when you are in this epicenter here. Now it's 4:21 p.m. Here in your 4:21 p.m. epicenter, and what you're able to do is vibrate part of you, telescoping back into the far past, deep antiquity, and part of you at the same time, another cell can be projecting millions of years into the future, and then another part of you can be projecting laterally. I'm projecting into someone who lives in the same space-time that I do. They live at 4:21 p.m. on June 28th of 2023. And then sometimes you are vibrating laterally into a different species that is at the same time, or deep antiquity, or far distant future. That is what these motions are, of up, down, side to side, in and out, and tumbling end over end. These are time-based motions. And part of it is the knowledge. It is this, what I'm describing to you with this, that this is the example of the behavioral knowledge of the perception of unity consciousness, that you are all consciousness existing across all time planes, across all dimensions, and in all structures. It's all you. Spoiler alert, it's all you. And when you lasagna, you gain access to all of it. And it doesn't take anything away from anyone. Like, if I'm going to vibrate into someone laterally, I'm like, there's that guy who is living down the street, but in the same time that I live in, and I get a genetic snapshot from him or some inspiration of the way that he put his, I'm like, wow, that guy plays his musical notes like this. I'm like, I like those notes, and I'm going to learn that. But I leave his piano in his house, and I take the notes, and I do those notes in my body. Because he might have notes that are like this. That's how you get rid of a disease. I'm like, ooh, that's a good song. Let's put that song inside of me too. And you might have that song of how to get rid of a disease from 10 million years ago. I'm going to vibrate back 10 million years ago. That's a good song. Or I'm going to vibrate 10 million years from now, and I'm going to find, there's that solution to something that I've been trying to know about or solve or improve in myself for a long amount of time. They already solved it. That's good stuff. I'm going to take the music. I'm going to leave the piano behind. It does not diminish that person at all for me to learn the code or the sequence that they're using. I don't take them. or anything from them. And this is also the spirit in which I offer Flying Rainbow Lasagna to others, that I offer it, I've said many times, but it must not ever be misinterpreted as like endless access to my energetic bank account. No, this means I call it open source code for your DNA, because I'm like this, oh, Pasta Factory, like here's how you do this, and then here's how you do this, and then here's how you do this, and here's how you do this. And I want you to learn from me. I want you to hear my song. I want you to hear, here's my lasagna song. Be like, that's a good lasagna song. I like it. I'm going to take it. Take the song, but leave the piano. I'm the piano. I'm the piano. Don't take my piano, but you can take the song. And then you play inside of you. And then you've got access to that. So I'm endlessly innovative in the things that I'm doing with my genetic piano. I want you to hear the song, and I want it to influence you, and I want you to consciously take it and apply it to yourself. But I don't want you to disrupt me or take my energy or take the keys off of my piano. That's not what it's about at all. So these are very, very, very different things, because again, I've referenced cloning in this world. None of this means that I give consent. I do not give consent at all to someone taking like a cell sample of my DNA and then being like, no, we're going to make lasagna clones, and then they're going to dance just like you. I'm like, no, that's not right. That would be like if you said like, I'm going to take my piano, you're going to make a bunch of, like copies of my piano, and then that is going to be playing the song of the lasagna that I'm always playing. Like, that's not what I'm talking about at all. No. Because if you do that, then those are like pieces of me that are diluted and spread all across the world. So I'm offering you thought structures. I'm offering you new genetic combinations and new genetic behaviors. But you do it with your own piano. Do it with your own body. You do it with your own life. That is the honorable way that you do all of this, especially recognizing unity consciousness, especially recognizing the connectivity and reciprocity of life having to sustain, having to reciprocally sustain self-state. So, good point for me to end on. Far-ranging teaching today, very silly, not my usual professorial approach. So thank you for allowing me some lightheartedness and silliness today. And if there are any questions or comments or things that you would like to share and have it be a part of the recorded video, now is a great time. I'll give you a moment to be able to type things out in the chat if you have anything to say. Next week I will resume back with level 2. I think we're on to lesson 2. If I haven't even done level 2 lesson 1. I think I did lesson 1. Oh, and yes, I did level 2 lesson 1, and I had a power outage. Pedro always says love the lasagna. Love received and love back to you in reciprocity. Thank you very much, Pedro. So yes, I did do level 2 lesson 1 and had a problem with the recording. So it was about advanced Merkaba, but I will go over this many, many times in the semester. So don't worry if you didn't get all of the teaching there. So next week will be level 2 lesson 2. All right. Lisa Metro says, thank you for everything. You're so welcome, Lisa. Thank you for you being here, and thank you for your own contributions to reality structure. Joyce Hartman, thank you so much. Great to see you. Much love to you. You're in Scotland, right? Like, thank you very much. Thank you. We love our world, totally all over the world, people in all different time zones. Thank you for being here. No, you're in Washington. I'm sorry. That's it. Thank you for being here in whatever physicality space you live in. And Adam, thank you for being here too. Thank you. Thank you, Trish, and everyone else who was able to attend live today. Marie, thank you very much. Yes, and again, my apologies for not sending out the link properly as I should have last night. And thank you for your understanding and forgiveness. I'll be better. I'll do better, I promise. All right, it's going to end the recording for right now. Thank you so much, everyone.